A weekend to change your life. Find your authentic self after a lifetime of being all things to all people. By Joan Anderson. Narrated by Renée Raudman. Copyright 2006 by Joan Anderson. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Joan Anderson and the Bloomer Literary Agency and was produced in the year 2006 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. A note from the author. In this book, I draw on the voices and stories of many of the women I have met over the past 9 years. Some examples are composites, some are drawn directly from my weekend workshops, and some are based on interviews I conducted for this book. In all cases, I changed the names to protect the privacy of these women who are still growing and changing. Introduction. Most women in their 30s to their 70s are asking the same question. How, after being all things to all people, can I become what I need to be for myself? Impossible, I hear some of you saying. It's just too much work. I could never unload enough of my obligations to address the question fully, say others. Well, perhaps. But you see, I was once so emptied by answering to everyone else's needs and expectations that I was desperate. Simply showing up for life no longer sustained me. I knew that I needed to listen to my heart and start taking better care of myself. But, like you, I didn't know how. Then one day, I took a leap of faith and ran away from home for a time. I have not looked back since. My flight was a pure gut reaction. I was halfway to 100, and I figured it was now or never. Listen to my own voice or continue to simply follow the pack. Somewhere, deep inside of me, I knew there were myriad unheard longings, ideas, and plans that I had grown used to ignoring. It was time to set them free. Escape seemed to be the only answer. Going to a place where I could be alone, apart from friends, family, and outside influences, would help me start again, get back in touch with who I was and wanted to be. Certainly, there was a price to pay. My decision to move myself to Cape Cod was really unpopular, if not downright threatening to most people in my life. Aside from one confused and angry husband, many friends and acquaintances called me selfish, while others concluded that I had simply turned into an aggressive feminist. I bristled at the abrasiveness of the latter label. Couldn't they see that I was simply at a turning point and in need of new direction? Still, their judgments fed my fears. It certainly seemed that I had lost all compassion and was even going a bit crazy. All I knew for sure was that I was tired and empty. The soft side of me had been buried by a culture that insists we do rather than be, and I didn't much enjoy the life I was leading. After a year spent alone, trekking through the dunes and hiking along the beaches of Cape Cod, I gradually gained some clarity, reconnected with my intuition and instinct, repaired the wounds of self-neglect, and uncovered a fresh slate upon which to design the rest of my life. Along the way, I realized that the barbed labels cast my way had very little to do with me. They reflected everyone else's fear of change, of not being able to lean on me. My job was to save the only life I could save, my own. During my year alone, I was fortunate enough to meet a wise old woman who became my friend and mentor. Joan Erickson was married to the famous psychoanalyst Erik Erikson and had collaborated with him on the theory that one's identity is formed through an 8-stage life cycle. In addition to her work with her husband, she was an artist, a listener, and a seeker. She showed me how to dance beyond the breakers, to pick up the dropped stitches of my life, to live in the moment, to nourish and love my body, and to never stop embracing adventure. Her friendship sustained me during my difficult journey. She buoyed my flagging spirits with her laughter and love of song. She kept me company on particularly dark and lonely nights, and she helped me find a sense of purpose beyond my despair by encouraging me to be generative and share my experiences. I hold dear her most significant lesson that we all have a responsibility to help ourselves to whatever wisdom and support come our way, and then, most importantly, to pass it on. So when some old friends came to visit and noticed not only a new bounce in my step, but my carefree, happy outlook, they declared that they wanted some for themselves. I looked back at the steps that had led to my transformation. Although I had felt my way through those first few months, simply allowing my days to happen rather than holding to clear goals and objectives, I did see a pattern to my experience and quite a few exercises that had helped to keep me moving forward. With Joan's encouragement, I chronicled my story in 3 best-selling memoirs designed to encourage other women to step outside of their lives, if not for a year, then for a week or a weekend, to learn to listen to what their hearts need to tell them. The books struck a nerve. Scores of women poured into bookstores for my appearances. Others invited me to their book clubs, and it was increasingly impossible to keep up with all the letters and emails expressing their relief that someone had put their exact feelings into words. Everyone wanted more stories, more inspiration, and more direction. 2 letters illustrate the point. I just finished a walk on the beach, and I'm enthralled. At this point in my life, where everything I have known and done for the past 27 years is ending and changing, I admire your courage to take hold of your own life. But how did you actually do all of this? Can you give me advice? Is there some sort of roadmap I should follow? I've just finished reading A Year by the Sea. Your book really touched me in many ways. I am 52, and at a time when I need to reinvent myself. The way you just packed up and went to the beach was wonderful but bewildering to me. I seem to be frozen in my space, and although I would like to move for a short time, forever is too scary. How did you get the courage? How did you live through the boredom? How did you get over the impatience? In your book, it all appears to be simple, and I know that it is not. What can I do? Clearly, other women have the desire to find purpose behind the roles that they play. All they need is the time, some supportive cheerleading, and some gentle guidance. So I began hosting Weekend by the Sea retreats. Now, some 8 years later, women continue to come from all over the country to these retreats and to the workshops I conduct on the road. They come to learn how to uncover the selves they have papered over so thoroughly year after year, decade after decade. They come to walk the beaches, share their stories, and, with the help of my hindsight, reconnect with their own true selves. They all come with the ache and point their fingers at stagnant marriages, demanding kids, newly empty nests, overbearing bosses, and unchallenging careers, and yes, most of all, at the way life has lost its luster. I greet them and say, "Welcome to the club, sister. It's time to get a new life." Who are these women? They are career women who thought they could do it all. Stay-at-home moms whose children have gone and left them, craving a new purpose. Newly widowed or divorced women facing lonely futures in a couples-driven world. Young mothers who have escaped the demanding noise and activity of their lives for the first time. Single women who wonder if they have missed something by not getting married. Besides mothers, there are also daughters, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, and friends who come from 50 states and Canada. They are both desperate and courageous, ready to do what it takes to become their own persons. During the retreat, they learn to be in the present, deviate from the path, unlearn the rules, indulge in time off, be perfect in their imperfections, and take action to force change. Although truly walking away, even for a weekend, is a luxury for many of us, finding the time to change is a necessity. Yes, there are hurdles, but most of them are of our own making. When I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show and talked about leaving home in order to find myself, a woman in the front row raised her hand and insisted that she couldn't possibly do anything like that. "I have several children," she complained, "and a job and a husband." I felt her confusion, as well as her indignation about my story, But I caught my guilt, sat straight up, looked her in the eye, and asked, "There are 8,700 hours in a year. Doesn't it seem pitiful that you can't find 24 just for yourself?" "Pitiful," Oprah responded with her wonderful drawl. "Did you hear her? Pitiful." The audience roared with laughter, but long after the show concluded, I came to realize what an important point had been made. If women don't find time to regenerate and restore, it is indeed pitiful. In fact, I don't know one woman who can claim that her family insists she find 20 minutes of joy. What's more, no one pushes us toward freedom or escape. We have to reach out and grab it for ourselves. This reaching takes a tremendous amount of will and courage. But as Joan Anderson once said to me, "It's a weakness to just sit and wait for life to come to you." We need not spend another moment being strangers in our skin. We've been good girls long enough. This book is meant to motivate you to get a new life. In it, I offer you the steps I instinctively took during my year by the sea, as well as the process followed at my weekend by the sea workshops, all the while mixing my story with the stories from other women. It is not meant to be hard work or to have any time constraints connected to it. We women don't need more work or anyone else telling us what to do. Besides, you can't put a time frame on soul work. There are as many routes back to self as there are women to take the journey, and ultimately, everyone must design her own path. Some might prefer that their angst simply pass. They don't want to hear that it's time for them to take their turn, to pull themselves out from under all their roles, to overcome their years of ingrained stage fright and step into the spotlight, to project their voices out as far as they can and shout, "I want, I need, I am." But it's not just the work that stops them. It's the lack of guidance. We all need more mentors. Our traditional systems of support have crumbled. Too many families are divided by divorce and separated by distance. Mothers and daughters rarely share the same points of reference, values, or expectations. So many of us feel isolated and adrift. In this book, I mix my story with the stories of other women retreaters. I hope you will begin to feel at home with our needs and our process, and to find a network of support. This is not a conventional how-to book. I can't stand how-to books with their assumption that if we just memorize the steps and follow the rules, we can perfect ourselves. Who wants perfect? Perfect is Botoxed in size 6. God never intended for us all to look the same. Instead, this book will provide you with a context and a sense of community. Browse through these chapters gradually over time, or actually follow the steps for one weekend as described in A Jumpstart Agenda in the afterword. You can enjoy the exercises with friends or go it alone. The weekend retreaters will affirm that it is possible to go away for a weekend and have a life-changing experience, and I urge each and every one of you to try to find that time. You can use the blank pages at the end to capture your growth or to keep a totally separate journal. However you decide to use this book, I encourage you to purchase a journal and write as you listen. Your reactions will form a conversation with my text and a springboard for your own original ideas. I saved all of my thoughts and exercises from that year alone, and I continually refer back to them for encouragement and inspiration. Although you may move in and out of the various sections as you see fit, do begin with the first chapter in order to understand your own need for change. We are all sisters in this struggle to reevaluate our routines and rules, and we need to encourage each other to take more risks. As T.S. Eliot once said, "Only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go." So, if you have been yearning to find the real you, refresh your sagging spirit, be spontaneous, wild, and even free, enjoy the present, let go of control, recover a broken spirit, or retrieve the buried parts of you, this book is for you. This is your chance to live into your questions, change your routine, depart from the norm, question the status quo, and take back some of each day just for you. Life is, after all, simply a response. There comes a time in every woman's life when she is called to account for herself. Is that time now for you? Sure, it will take some discipline, determination, trust, and time. But in the end, you will understand the words of Plato. The unexamined life is the wasted life. So go ahead, leap off that high dive, though the voices inside you say no, and then never look back. It is finally your turn. Part 1. Pre-weekend. Understand your need for change. Chapter 1. Wake up, sister. It's your turn. There is a fallow time for the spirit when the soil is barren because of sheer exhaustion. Howard Thurman. Recognize that you are lost. A full life requires cultivation. The minute we take our hands off the plow, fail to reseed, forget to fertilize, we've lost our crop. And yet most women I know have, in the service of some greater good, let their very lives wilt on the vine. Having been taught the fine art of accommodation, most of us have developed a knack for selfless behavior. We've dulled our personal lives while propping up everyone else's, and we're no longer able even to imagine having any sort of adventure, romance, meaning, or purpose for ourselves. In short, we've gotten way off track and taken the wrong road to self-satisfaction, foolishly thinking that, after all of the doing, giving, trying, and overworking, someone will offer us a reward. But Prince Charming was a bad joke, and all the fairy godmothers are dead. Instead of happy ever after, most of us end up with the ache. We wake up each day with an inner gnawing, a hunger for more, a craving for an overhaul, but we are too listless, tired, or depressed to do anything about it. We have spent the greater part of our lives pouring ourselves out like pitchers. No wonder we feel so empty, but we lack the necessary energy, a helpful roadmap, and any type of guidance and support. Well, it is time to change all of that. The first step is to recognize that you are lost. In Ingmar Bergman's film Face to Face, Jenny, an accomplished yet empty woman, says, "We women act the part. We learn the lines. We know what people want us to say. In the end, it's not even deliberate, because we are so very conscientious about our behavior." It may seem almost impossible to get back behind the habit of performance to that raw material person we once were, but it's not. I was a suburban mother of 2 sons, a supportive wife to a busy man, a devoted daughter and daughter-in-law to 4 aging parents, and a reliable nurturer to multiple members of our extended family and friends. Chained to my agenda and telephone, I prided myself on being a multitasking wonder, fixing, along the way, my share of scraped knees, hurt feelings, and even some of my friends' failing marriages. Just call on me, and I would happily run the school bazaar, handle the pledge drive for church, slice the oranges and pour the Gatorade for soccer and basketball games, all the while writing features for a local newspaper in order to earn some petty cash for extras. My calendar was so full that I took to taping extra paper onto the margins. I would jump out of bed in the morning, throw on some clothes, make breakfast, pack the lunches, wave goodbye to everyone, clean up the kitchen, go for my walk, run errands, tackle my work assignments, return to the kitchen to prepare dinner, and then do another round of cleanups, kiss everyone goodnight, and finally fall back into bed. For the most part, I performed so well that no one else even bothered to pitch in. If people did, I usually pushed their help away, confident that I had everything under control. I was frenzied, but I felt important and full of my accomplishments. After all, didn't I produce the most beautiful dinner parties, holidays, and special family events? I was helping others, and both their progress and their smiles seemed like reward enough for me. My self-worth came from being the resident caretaker. It was as if I had been bred for the role. In hindsight, I see that the training began back in puberty, when my body took on a life of its own. Once the hormones began to pop, The next 40 years mapped themselves out for me. I was no stronger than my urge to mate, procreate, caretake, swept along all the way by the rush of giddy excitement, desire, and role-playing. But eventually, there was a downside to being this invisible sustainer, a hovering sense that I wasn't really as fulfilled as I thought. A pang of doubt would often sneak up on me unawares when, for instance, my mother would help me serve dinner and repeat her age-old mantra, "Mothers always eat the chicken wings." It was a joke that went back to the Depression era, when a clever housewife was able to feed a family of 6 on one tiny roasted chicken. Yet, every time I heard my mother talk about taking the least desirable part of the bird, I felt sorry for her. After all, weren't mothers important? Didn't they need nutrition just as much as anyone else? The doubting thoughts and questions became more frequent when our sons went to college. Blank spaces began to appear on the calendar, and I suddenly had too much time to spare. What should I do now? Distressingly, I hadn't the faintest idea. Enthralled with nurturing others, I had all but forgotten that I, too, had needs, desires, and goals. So I huddled with my girlfriends as we sipped too much wine and complained about our plight. We were all waking up to the stark reality that none of us had bothered to invest in our individual futures. What's more, my friend Cheryl concluded, "You don't get a gold watch for menopause." Searching for ways to assuage our ache, we began renting films about women at the crossroads, just to see how each protagonist found her way out of the quagmire. Ellen Burstyn ran away in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, as did Shirley Valentine in the movie of the same name. Jill Clayborne escaped into a series of affairs in An Unmarried Woman, and poor Gina Rowlands simply went crazy in A Woman Under the Influence. None of these stories really offered us a strong solution, so we each went our separate ways. Virginia applied to law school, Adelia got her real estate license, Judy, a recent widow, took a lover, and together they started traveling the world. Helen came out, Julie embraced the joys of grandmothering, and Cheryl ran off to her favorite island in Maine with her husband. I applauded my friends' actions, but their particular choices seemed to me to be more about finding something to do or a new relationship that would serve to distract them from their ache. I was craving something else. I just couldn't seem to put my finger on it. I suppose I was hoping for a sign or event, some kind of ritual to occur that would free me up for a new course and identity. There were rituals, to be sure. My sons graduated from college and moved into their own homes. One got married, another engaged. My father died, my husband turned 50, but all of these transitions revolved around others. Although I was intimately involved in and changed by these events, none of them put the focus on me. Once again, I was producing special occasion moments and then feeling let down after the intensity of the event dissolved. Then, one Christmas, during a visit to the married children, I truly began to understand that I had to stop looking for help from others. Any change in my life was mine to initiate. From the moment Robin and I arrived, I felt very much out of place. The children had a clear vision for the holiday, and though they had included touches from both of their families, most of their plans were unfamiliar to me. What was worse, all of my offers to help seemed to fall on deaf ears. I repeated to myself that children have to reject us in order to get on with their lives. But I wasn't prepared to handle the power shift or my brand new role as bit player. So I took to retreating to the bedroom to hide my awkwardness. I had learned long ago that the Chinese character for conflict is 2 women under the same roof, and regardless of my own discomfort, I was determined to have none of that. If truth be told, I wanted my old role back. I wanted to continue to design and control the traditions, to make my grandmother's coffee cake, open our stockings, and then have brunch before presents, complete with Eggs Benedict. But I had realized long ago that staying in the I want place was ego-driven. I want to still be important to my sons. I want holidays to be my way. I want traditions to stay as I have always dictated them. I needed to let go of my wants and start concentrating on I am in order to find a new life and the bliss I sought. It was time to take charge of becoming a new me, and the first step was to admit that I was lost. Soon after Christmas, something strange happened that forced me to listen to my invitation further. I developed a sensation in my throat that gradually made it almost impossible to swallow. Esophageal cancer, I thought, or at the very least, a bad case of acid reflux. I raced off to my internist in a panic. After several tests, she concluded that the presenting symptoms amounted to nothing. Rather than a prescription, she handed me a book she had just read, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. In this little book, Hay explains how negative emotions and high anxiety frequently produce pain, the body's way of telling us to change our patterns and live differently. In my case, I had to admit that I simply couldn't swallow the way I was living anymore, so despite my fears, the lonely work of finding a new self commenced. The psychiatrist I had started seeing applauded my realizations. Good for you for wanting to be your own heroine, she said. It's difficult, isolating work. You've got to break with the patterns of your past, not an easily achievable endeavor for a compassionate woman such as yourself, but well worth the effort. Although she continued to raise my consciousness, she didn't tell me how to break from these stultifying patterns, how to appease my inner gnawing, or how to become my own heroine. I remained puzzled, at a loss as to how to proceed, and I continued to struggle with feelings of apathy, tedium, and stagnation. A leap of faith. That's when fate intervened. My husband announced that he had found an exciting new job in a neighboring state, and that we would be moving in 2 months. We, I found myself thinking, what gives with the assumed we? As I listened in disbelief, I found myself countering with a plan of my own. I would view his opportunity as a chance to do something for myself and take a short refuge in our Cape Cod cottage. The words were out of my mouth before they were formed, and I shocked us both. Previously, after being loose-tongued, I would backslide and apologize for my desires and opinions. This time, I didn't. Instinct told me to hold the course. But taking a leap is one thing. Landing on your feet is quite another. It was an impulsive decision, to be sure, and I hadn't the faintest idea what I was in for until I arrived at the cottage, with no one there to greet me and no agenda for distraction. Unlocking the door and walking into a place darkened by shades was anticlimactic in light of the commotion that had surrounded the announcement of my great escape. I quickly whipped the covers off the fading furniture and threw open the windows to clear the air of must. But nothing I did made me feel any less uncomfortable in this place. So I hurriedly left my empty nest and raced off to the sea. Walking on the beach has always cured my jitters, and I eagerly anticipated the exhilaration of frothy waves and wild surf. Instead, I found a glassy sea with no visible energy or motion. On closer inspection, I noticed the familiar circle that indicates that it must be ebb tide, the time when the sea is neither coming in or going out, simply turning itself around. Perhaps, I concluded, the ebbing sea was meant as a sign for me to indulge in a sort of psychic slumber, that I too was to ebb, that being in neutral for a while might help soothe my aching soul. For the next several days, I packed my duffel and went to the beach, plotting my arrival in time for the ebb. As I squatted in the dunes, gathering my knees up close to my chest and rocking to the rhythm of the water, I tried to look backward to discern a vision I must have had for my life before it ran amok. Although I could remember numerous events from long ago, the recent year was a total blur. It took hours to recall even the smallest detail, let alone the big moments. But sticking with the exercise, I was finally able to recall my birthday, a trip out west, getting a writing assignment from a magazine.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?